forgot to press the button.
It's a classic, even after so long in the lockdown.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so let's kick off then. So thanks a lot for joining. So yeah, I'm Andy Murdoch. I'm a mapping professional by day, as it were, and hoverflies and sort of insect recording has only really been a relatively new thing for me since sort of lockdown, where I took a much closer interest in things in my garden. And it was started off with birds, and then I kind of got on to hoverflies, and I was posting them on iRecord, and because Roger was so responsive and sending feedback back, I kind of got drawn into the group, and like many of you probably, and yeah, so it's been a couple of years. So I tend to sort of operate in my local area. I've got a couple of woodland trust woods that I'm a wildlife monitor at, where I've got permissions to collect, and also some Eastleigh Borough Council sites nearby. So that's what most of my activities here. But like you will, I occasionally go to Norfolk, Snettisham area, where parents-in-law have a caravan. So so I know I've done some around there as well. I should also say that it's, you know, this project is kind of funded, as it were, by my company Maploom, which I own with a guy called Yanis Sophos, who's the technical brains behind this platform. So he does all the clever stuff, and you know, so he's very much part of this as well. But he's not a hoverfly specialist. He's an IT professional. He's just got roped into this by me. So essentially, what we're going to do is going to give you a bit of an overview of the platform. I've mentioned about the recording, but if you want to post anything in the chat, like I think Trevor's going to, then do at any point, and then we can go over them with a Q&A at the end. But yeah, so I was just saying, by day, I get involved in all sorts of applications to do with mapping and environmental mapping in particular, but Yanis has also developed stuff for the Greek Ministry of Culture, because he's based in Athens. So just a quick overview of what we're going to cover. So background to the system. I'm going to demonstrate some of the functionality, and then talk about roadmap for the future. And then also we've got an opportunity to do a Q&A. So yeah, I'll crack on, but at any point, you know, let's keep it quite informal. If you want to break in and ask questions, then do at appropriate time. It's there's not a large number of us, so we can probably deal with that quite easily. So so yeah, let's crack on. So SyrphBoard came about because Roger put out a request on the Facebook page about trying to do sort of recording to support recording, and particularly looking at things like high resolution recording, temporal resolution during the day when it's hot weather. And it kind of got us talking about a system that could be used to make it easier to record hoverflies, especially those who were recording using spreadsheets and were basically you know, regularly entering sightings, you know, on a daily basis. So how could we make it quicker and easier for that to happen? So Yanis, well, I spotted the call, and Yanis and I were developing our main platform at the time, and we thought this would be a good demonstrator. So it kind of it helped on a personal level for me, but also you know, for our company, we use this as a demonstrator to show our capability. So that's, as I was saying, it's funded by our company, but you know, I'm a hoverfly person, so it's, you know, we're in it for the love of it, really. The good thing about the platform is that it's tuned to your sighting, so it remembers like what you've seen. It also allows you to list your own sites, so create your own sites, so you can reuse them. And the other benefits are that it's validated and secure. So we have quite a lot of problems, or Roger has quite a lot of problems with spreadsheets and things, and records generally, where grid references are wrong, or, you know, there's inconsistent spelling of species and so on. Well, the platform takes all of that risk away, because we have, you know, buttons for entering species, so you'll never get it wrong as long as the list's right that's behind the system. So that's the idea, that we've got much more accurate records, less time checking and cleaning records. But we've also got this ability to add new data as well. So the new functionality is to add, as I say, for warm weather periods, high temporal resolution recording, so we can put a time of day associated with a record and track that over hot periods. But we can also add information about the weather as well, and sort of overall conditions. So occasionally you'll see posts in the summer about whether we're using high resolution recording or not. But the main reason that we wanted to develop the system is that the scheme as a whole, we're quite conscious that the records were going into a bit of a black box from the recorder's point of view, and some people are quite happy with that. They just want to record, make sure that what they've seen gets recorded. But a lot of users are quite keen also to do stuff with their data. So we wanted to make it available, to download, but also to provide functionality on the front, so you could interrogate your own records in a way on a modern platform. So that's where the sort of aim came from. And then obviously what we also wanted to do was make it easier to get those records into the HRS database. So at the moment, what happens is the records are collated at the end of the year and then they get uploaded. There's a potential with this, if we verify records as we go, that could be that the records can get across into the HRS database more frequently. So if you want to look at progress through the year and the sort of reports that Roger generates and posts on Facebook, then he's got easy access to that data. But we're not making any sort of specifications about when people download. It's just if there's time and people want to download it before the end of the year, then they can. But obviously people are busy and so on. So it's the flexibility's there. So we launched in March last year. So we've had a pretty good year so far. And the idea is that it's not designed to replace other methods of recording. So if you use iRecord, that's fine, and people can still do, and people who are just submitting via the Facebook group, that's fine too. This is designed to just be another method of recording and hopefully complementary. But hopefully, once you see this functionality, you'll hopefully think that it's perhaps a bit easier than maybe recording on spreadsheets and whatnot. So so basically into the platform. So we can give you the link at the end. But basically, you basically log in with your own Facebook user ID. So I haven't actually included the screen, but basically you get a little icon here, and you can enter your username and password for Facebook, and that gains you entry to the system. And basically, once you're in there, then you're presented with a home screen. It'll look pretty dull at the start because you won't have any records, but you'll see all of the other sessions, the records that have been entered so far. So there's a bit of a welcome dashboard. So this is my dashboard, my SyrphBoard. So you can see that I've had 300 sessions. I've got about 1,200 records, 54 species at 20 sites. And you also below get this species breakdown. So we haven't done a huge amount on the dashboard at the moment, but we want to enhance this to make it more functional and to allow you to do more stuff like sorting by most common and or most encountered and so on. But at the moment you just get a list and it just summarizes what you've seen, and obviously that builds over the year as you enter more and more records, and we'll be able to filter it by this year versus last year and things like that. But at the moment our main emphasis has been trying to get the records into the system and then get it through the process of verification and out the other end. So we haven't spent a huge amount of time on visualizing the data, but clearly that's going to be a big important part of it. So that's the first tab, the summary, and then the second one is the record. So these are all the records individually, and we have this concept of a session where you're observing at a place on a particular date. So a place being a particular grid square on a particular day, and you might give that a site name. So these are my records. Not a lot been happening in Chandler's Ford lately. It's a bit cold down here, and I've not seen a huge amount lately, but last year was quite good. And so again, your list of records builds, and within each of these you then have a set of observations. So when you click on one of those, it expands to show the record itself, so the species, or if it's just a genus only, then you get a thing like this, so to speak. and then there's various other bits that describe that particular record, which I'm going to come on to in a bit more detail. And then the next tab along is where you add the information. So automatically it'll put in your name from your Facebook ID, and the date defaults to the current date, but you can use this date selector. And again, that cuts out the problems of formatting and stuff for some records. Then if we're recording specific times, you can actually click one or a period of time, but typically it's an observing period, or if you just uncheck that, it just assumes that it's records for the whole day. We've also got the ability to map put down the weather, so in these classes, and then also the temperature. So it's fairly basic at the moment, but this was again designed to support this high frequency recording in hot weather, and to try and see if we can gather information across the country about whether there are impacts and so on. As I said, there was quite a few problems with grid references as well. So in checking records, so we've hopefully removed a lot of that by allowing you to click on a location on the map and define a site, but also to as soon as you click on that item, it will give you the reference. It will automatically populate which vice county it's in, and then, as in this case, most of my records would go into the garden, but you can see I've obviously been recording elsewhere, and over time you can build up a list of sites. So next time you want to record records for that, it doesn't have to necessarily be in the same grid square, but once you click that, it will then go to the extent that you've defined. So for something like this wood here, mainly restricted to the access around the edge of the wood, so that's where most of the records have been. But you can see that I could click Titlark Copse and it would pull in all of those. It would zoom to that area and allow me to choose which grid square from that. So it hopefully saves a bit of time. It certainly saves a bit of cleaning time later if there are incorrect grid references and so on. But for now, that hopefully is a useful tool. And then we're going to add something to better manage these. So, it's the most common sites at the top, and maybe there's a grouping here where, like for occasionally I record in Norfolk, as I was saying earlier, it'd be good to be able to just put those sites under a heading and maybe only deal with those when the time comes. So there's lots of flexibility and options to deal with that type of thing. Within that, then when you click on a particular species, what we wanted to do was to, again, try to eliminate errors with spelling of species names. So we have a list that we maintain, and that populates a set of buttons. And because over time, or certainly as you go over the season, you tend to be recording similar sorts of things. The one it defaults to is my recent 20 species. So if you basically click that, you get these buttons which are available that allow you to pick a species from that list, and then you can then go in and add details about it, which I'll come on to. So our options at the moment are my recent 20, the hoverfly recording scheme top 20 species. So this is the most common species that are seen throughout. And then if you've only got down to genus or tribe, then there's an option to just select from those as well. And then in addition to that, you can also search. So you can start typing and then it will pull back the relevant species below. So I'll actually show you this live shortly, but that's the idea. So then once you've done that, you can then pick one off the list, and then you get this entry form which pops up. So you have to specify a number, sex, life stage. It can only be one of these, though. We're assuming that if you can identify it to male or female, then it's obviously an adult. There's the option for adult, but then there's also pupae, larvae, or puparium larvae, and egg, I think. So we want to expand on this, and see Jeff's on the call, so we'll perhaps talk about this later. But what we want to do is to enable greater level of recording for people who are recording early stages. So we've got some thoughts on that, but at the moment we haven't implemented it. So I'll talk about that when we come to the roadmap later on. So number, life stage or sex, and then the observation method. So was it a photograph? Was it a visual observation? Is it a specimen? Who's verified it? By default, it defaults to me. So if you're confident and as your experience grows with identification, then you'll be able to self-verify a lot of species. And again, I'll come back to that. But failing that, you can provide a Facebook link. You provide additional comments. So like here, this one coming to sugar spray, which is my best chance of getting anything at the moment. And then there's also the option to duplicate or remove a record. So if I've added a male surface and I want to add a female, I just click on that and then change the icon. So it saves me having to find it again. So that's quite a nifty little thing. Everyone with me so far? Does all sound sensible? Yeah. Okay. So, and then when you come into the comments, another nifty thing is if you want to apply the same comment, say they're all at the same flower that you've seen them at, they're all going mad for the ivy in the autumn or whatever, then you can basically type it in once and click this fill down. And for every record that you have open in that session, it will then populate those values into it. So again, that saves you having to copy and paste it down. It just fills down. So you can fill down all the way, or you can just fill down from a particular point. So if this was a different comment, I could hit fill down and that would only apply it to those and leave this one out. But yeah, in order to access that, you just tick on the little comments box. And then similarly, if you want to add a hyperlink to the Facebook post. Now, this is obviously a big part of the system. The process of gathering records is getting them verified via the Facebook page. So again, it just adds greater credence to the records if you've got a Facebook post, and then you would have the option to change this to the person who verified it. So Chris Ellen or Roger or Nicola or Jeff, somebody like that would be in that list. So yeah, and again, you could fill down again. So if we've got a post, several hoverflies that you're requiring verification, then you can post that link all the way down, which is really handy. And if you want to get the link, you just click on the date underneath your name and it will give you the link for the whole post rather than individual ones. So that's perfectly adequate just to get it to that level. And then once you've done that, you can basically save the record, and then you'll see this option of whether you want to submit. So that would submit it for verification by Roger, essentially. That's a new function that we just added. And if you don't submit immediately, that's fine. You might be waiting for feedback from the Facebook page, or there might be a specimen that's gone off that's waiting for verification or whatever. So there's the option to keep it in draft, or even after it's submitted, as long as it's not been verified, you can make the record draft again and make changes. So if you make a mistake and you realize later and the record hasn't been looked at by the verifiers, then you should be able to get in there and change it. So that's very handy. And then finally, you've got the option to export your records out, and that's the big emphasis here. These are your records. The hoverfly recording scheme is collating the records, but they're yours ultimately. You've done the hard work to go out there and gather them, and so we really wanted our users to have that sense of ownership, and that's why we want to add additional functionality to sort of pay back and feedback on all the stuff that's entered in. So some people also, though, do like to take the records offline for their own purposes to process in other ways, maybe to map them or do other things. So we've given the facility to export out in Excel, and I think you've seen people like Robin Soames who've done some amazing things with their records now that they've been recording a few years. So yeah, and we've got some more work to do on this, but essentially it gives you the spreadsheet format as you're used to if you're using a spreadsheet. But the real useful bit from Roger's perspective is to be able to then go into SyrphBoard and see all of the submitted records and to verify those. So he's got his own little button called the determination button, which is added to the interface. So he can see how many records are outstanding that need to be verified, and then who's submitted them. So this is just in the test system. So I've got all my records and a few from Yanis. And essentially he's then able to go through and either individually accept or query or reject records, or he can do that en masse. So what we're tending to find is that if a record has a Facebook verifier and a link, then they would pretty much get waved straight through because they've already been checked, essentially. So barring the errors, then those records would typically be waved through just on a single click. So, when we did this for the first time, I think it was 5,000 odd records went straight through because they'd been verified already. So that's obviously saves a lot of time scrolling down and having to click and whatnot. So the idea is that over time, Roger will be able to then look at individuals, and depending on the level of experience, might accept certain species, but may want to query them. So for me, you'll probably have quite a few he'd want to query because I get my knowledge up. But yeah, there's others that most observers are going to be comfortable with, the likes of Olicella pelicens and things like that are quite big and obvious. And he may be just happy to accept all those en masse, or Surface Boltiatus, for example. So the idea is to very quickly get through those, and then once they've been determined, then you'll see a tick next to your record, or if he's queried it, then you'll see in your system at the top of your records that the record's been flagged and there's a question. So we've now got this new box, which is a double quotes, which means there's a message from Roger which you need to respond to. So here's just an example of what that looks like. So he might ask you a specific question. Do you have a photo? Was this checked? And then you can provide a response within the system, but you'll only see that when a record's queried. So obviously that helps with the verification process, and this is the main thing that we've been working on since we released, and what we've been trying to get over the line recently. So that's why we haven't done other development, because we've been concentrating on this point. See, someone's raised a hand. Yes, go.
Yes. It's Claire. Can I just ask a question? So I've been the way I've been using SyrphBoard up until now is that I would put my photographs onto Facebook, get the ID verified, then I put them go back and enter them onto SyrphBoard, and then I just save them. But I've been putting who's verified, but I haven't been pressing the link to Facebook. Do I need to link it to Facebook, having already put it on Facebook?
Yeah, and ideally yes, because then it will automatically go through on that verification process. So it's just a case of copying and pasting. I don't know how long you've been using it for. Hopefully it's not too onerous to go back, but
no, I can just go. Can I just go back and click the link on all of them?
Yeah. So if I show my screen, so yeah, you literally can just go into the post, and it will take the link there and just copy that. Does that make sense?
No, I go in.
Sorry, yeah. So on your post, you'll have a load of pictures and a comment from Chris, but all you need to do is click on that there, where it says 23 hours. That's just the date of the post. And if you copy this link at the top, so you can just, I think you probably right click on it, but the easiest thing to do is just copy from there. And then in SyrphBoard, you would go in, and down here, if I just click something, then you just add it in like that. So just paste it in.
I see. Another box comes up when you press that link.
Yeah. So but you have to populate it first and then save it, and then it will be available. So I probably need to go through and add a few more things. But yeah, that's what you do essentially. But yeah, thanks for the question.
Okay, thanks for that.
No, that's okay. Let's go back. So yeah, there's the initial the verification, the automated one. But if a record's tricky, then
sorry, Andy. There's a question from Trevor in the chat.
Sorry, I'm not seeing everything. I've got 3 screens going on, so my apologies. But yeah, go ahead. Trevor's got. Could somebody read it out to me just while I?
Oh, sorry. Trevor's asking, Andy, could you go through entering multiple records from one grid reference without going to the add button for each record?
Okay, what I'll probably do is if we just finish off this bit, which is just one more slide to get to the explore, and then I will I'll come back to that if that's all right. Yeah, so yeah, if it's a tricky record, then there may be a bit of a to and fro in here, and we can make this more sophisticated in future so that it notifies you if there's a message, or there's a bit more flexibility, maybe to upload a photo even. But we wanted to keep it simple for now. It just this basic backwards and forwards, and then finally, Roger's able to then export just like you are. So we've currently got 22,000 records from last year that are verified and ready to go. We're just tidying up the format so that the hoverfly recording scheme can accept them. So it's going to be pretty good, I think. So yeah, just a few highlights. So to date, we've got about 40 regular users. There's a lot more listed on the platform, but some people have just logged in and explored a bit and then not come back, essentially, for various reasons, because they're perhaps using other systems or whatever, just went for a nosy. But we had 25,000 records in 2022, which accounts for about a quarter of all the records. So it's a pretty good start. And as I say, 152 species, about 40,000 individual hovers now. So you can see all of that on the main page. So let's jump into the platform first, and I'll show you. So let's just start again from scratch, and I'll take you through it. So this is what you'd see on landing. You've got the different buttons. There's some help and FAQs. These are quite light, but you've got some additional information if you wish. There's a bit about the platform. And as I say, this first one, you can't do very much with it at the moment, but the idea is that you'll be able to click on this and then maybe see information just about that species. So the sites you've seen it at, the number of records, what key months, the phenology of that species based on your records versus all records. So there's lots we can do. But for now, this is just a simple list. So it's maintaining your list, but aggregating all the records that are there so far. So, I'm doing all right, I think, from last year. And then you can go into detail. So you can see I've got this queried record here. So I've got a query from Roger. I think I can click on that. Don't seem to. So it's queried, but I have to go onto the messages to see what Roger said. So he's saying, "Are you sure this is just a test message?" You get the idea, and then I can type something back, and then that will appear in the message log. So Roger would then get a notification that I'd responded. For some reason, it's entering it twice at the moment, but again, we need to go and clean that up. But so that's the idea, that you have these queried records, and then for any individual record, you can see, these are all the sessions, and then I can pick one, and you can see the details. So you can see the location. This one's now locked. We want to make it so that you can still see all of the location information and etc. But you can see that this one's been accepted, so it's now locked. And then you might have multiple records on a particular day. So again, this is showing that there. So yeah, basically that's how you would browse through. Again, you can hover over these to see the comments, so you don't have to open them every time. But again, there's more we can do to make this functional, but for now it's the basic information. And then what we would then typically do is then go out, and on a particular day, if you go to the add button, then you can see it's automatically populated my name. It's automatically put today's date in, but I can go back in time and select other ones. If I was working with a specimen for a particular day and I've only just identified it, I need to go back several months. But the idea is that you can check those. If it's a specific time of day and I want to record that because it's part of a more focused session, then I can go in and pick a time. I can pick a weather from these classes. These are the main classes for now, and give it a temperature. And then this is the map, so you can see it's interactive. I can go in and actually find, so I'm based down here in Southampton, but say I was going into a specific location, you can then choose a location, select it on the map, and then that will give you the grid reference and the vice county automatically. And I could call this, you know, a site name, and that will be saved when I come to come back. And all of my available sites are here. So again, if I want to record at a specific location, I'd click on my garden and it's zooming to the square where my house is. And you know, if I was going to Titlark Copse, you can see that it's pulling in all of the extents for Titlark Copse that I've mapped so far. So the idea is that all of that's populated. You then select the grid reference to add a new one. I won't do that now. I'll just call this test site again, just so I can delete it later. And then, depending on whether you've had any records, you can either hit nil return, and nil returns are useful again in the context of this high frequency temporal recording where it's hot weather, because you know it might be that certain times of the day we're getting nothing, and then as it cools down, we're getting records, and it just allows for the fact that people are out recording to be noted. And again, for me, this time of year, I'm going out quite regularly, spraying leaves and not seeing anything. But you know, that's useful to know in the sense of the overall picture for my garden, because it kind of tells you when things start to move, and you'd be able to compare first records and stuff. So it's recording effort, even if there's nothing seen. So it's quite useful. But you just click that and then click save, and you'd be done. But let's assume that we've had a better day than a nil return. So these are all my recent species, and you can see that there are several. And if I wanted to select multiple species, then I can click as many as I want, and they populate this list. And then it's just a case of then going through and adding them. So I was explaining before about you can duplicate records. Well, that would be a way to do that. And then you can change the sex, you can change the numbers. You can choose the verification method. So if you've got multiple records, it can be quite quick. And then if they were all coming to sugar spray, you can put that in and apply it down, as I said earlier. So if I hit fill down, it's applied that to all of those. If I want to add a Facebook link, like we saw earlier, I just click on this one, it pops in this new link. And sorry, it's on the other screen. And then I can fill that one down as well. So I've actually very quickly finished off that record, and that's now ready to save. If I want to add another one that's maybe a bit more obscure and is not on the standard list, something like Hylosia pubera, then I can do a search in there and it'll pull it back. And then similarly, that search I was doing earlier. So you can see it's very quick, and obviously we're getting straight to the species and in the way that we can record. So I'm just going to save that, and then are there any immediate questions on that side of it? That all makes sense? Yeah, so Trevor, yeah, you can select multiple species, but if you do that first, then it becomes much quicker later, because you can just work down the list rather than, you know, typing, going back. It's much quicker, especially when you fill down to copy records across. So hopefully that'll save you quite a lot of time. So then I go back into my records, and I should see that new record is here now, and you can see that it's all there ready to interrogate if I want. If I need to edit it again, I can just go back in and edit, and I get the same screen back again. Oh, I got the time wrong. I was actually out at 11 o'clock. You can just turn these on and off. And you can reset them. And again, any of this is changeable. The only thing you can't do at the moment is is to kind of modify these to be a different species. So you'd have to literally remove it if it was wrong. So say this was you know, Pertinax or Horticola, then you'd have to remove it and add that rather than modify it here. But that's just a limitation of the system at the moment. But I don't think it's a big deal. So yeah, and then you basically just keep adding to that list over time, and you'll get a dashboard that starts to increment. All of these will update. Your summary table will update, And as I say, the plans for the future are to very much extend that. So I won't talk about the determination screen because I've kind of showed you that before. But in terms of specific record, if I want to submit for verification, then it's just a case of clicking that. You just get asked if you want to submit, and then you're done, basically. So until Roger picks that up, and it might be others in future, then you can go back and make draft again, which means that it's all available for editing and whatnot. But as soon as they've had their hands on it, it gets locked, basically, so that we don't get confused. And if there were changes that needed to be done to a specific record after that point, then we could still do something in the back end, but it would be on a case-by-case basis, and hopefully by the time you come in to submit, the record has been checked and is ready to go. So at the moment, I think we're encouraging people to submit once they're happy with them, so that we know how many records are there waiting for verification, and Roger could spread the task, and also that the records become available quicker. But equally, we could post something on Facebook saying all SyrphBoard users submit their records, or we've also got the option to put messaging on the platform as well, so you can actually click here and see a message to tell you maybe to submit any records that are appropriate for that time. So that's the main bit of the platform. As I say, we're going to be working on some improvements, so let me just tell you a bit about that. So at the moment, we've had about a year of use, so it's quite a good period. Not quite a year, just coming up to a year, and so we've had quite a lot of feedback along the way, and we've added and updated quite a lot of things. I think we've made something like 70 updates since the launch. Some of them quite small, but some others, like the determination, quite significant. And what we've been doing is collating all of the requests from people for improvements, and so there's lots of things that we've logged in our system for software development that we can kind of refer to, and when we'll make efforts to improve the system. So that's one thing, and at any point you can email us on the support or via the Facebook page, and we'll attempt to sort of address concerns. But for now, we're logging them, and then we're going to prioritize them into a roadmap. So we did have a session earlier in the year about release 2. We're not going to do a massive release. What we're going to do is incrementally change the platform, because Yanis and I have got a full-time job. This is a voluntary thing, so it takes a little bit longer for us to do stuff. But we are keen to keep developing it, and we're investing our time and effort to make sure that it becomes really sophisticated. So I think we've kind of covered why you would want to use the system. Hopefully there's a lot more new things coming, but just to give you a bit more of a flavour, we've covered off the final determination, which I said is a big piece of work because it has quite a lot of interactions and needs to be right. But we also, our next priority is to then do one of the sprints that looks at the system. A sprint is basically a bit of effort from us as software development to deliver a piece of functionality. So we call it a sprint. But what we're going to focus on is those usability elements, and also adding a few additional things onto the dashboard. So that's the thing that you would see first. Then we know that we can potentially help the likes of Adam and the others who are involved with the data extraction on the Facebook group, because we think we can a lot of those are now using the system and benefiting from it. So they were saying, is it possible to help and record other people's records that are submitted via the Facebook group that will end up on SyrphBoard, essentially. So it's just an easier way for them to get records off from the Facebook group. And Yanis thinks he's got lots of ideas about how he could do that in a more automated way, but for now it's going to be entered in the same way that you or I would do it. But hopefully that will help, because they get thousands of records, especially at busy times in summer. And then our next priority is to try and tackle the early stages. So people who are rearing larvae and want to keep track of those. The idea is that there's I've been discussing with Jeff, and I don't know, Jeff, if you want to say any more about the requirements, but suffice to say, it hasn't dropped off our list. We have been prioritising this other piece on determination, but the aim is to come back and look at that early stage stuff, so that as people are rearing larvae and they get to maturity, then they become identifiable, and so we can track that using SyrphBoard. So you can look at success rates for rearing, and log things that happen over the way. So you might, Jeff, did you want to say something on that?
Right, can you hear me and see me?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's actually two things I'd like to put across, if I may.
Let me just stop sharing my screen so I can. Yeah.
The first one is to do with predominantly the recording of adults. So I'd like to share my experience of using SyrphBoard over the last year. So what tends to happen is I go out into the field, and all those species or specimens, or rather specimens that I can identify in the field on the day, I log on to SyrphBoard within a couple of days, and I found that to be a very good experience. But I have a second cohort of records, which is specimens that I retain for doing microscope work, and they can sit in my freezer for a good couple of months and even into the next year. So the slight glitch, well, I wouldn't call it a glitch, it's probably the way I'm trying to work the system, but the slight problem I have is, so I got my initial entries put in for the data specimens identified on the day. I then want to go back to those entries and update them with specimens as I identify them. And the problem I found is that a lot of my site names cover several grid references.
Yeah.
So I find it very difficult to find which entry I'm wanting to put my identified specimen in. So because in the record summary you got the date and the site name, but it might be useful to have another, if it's possible, another column with the grid reference, because to find the grid reference I have to click for all my site names and then click the edit button, and that's all. That's a bit of time. I don't know how easy that would be to do, but that's generally how I've been using SyrphBoard at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely something. Let me just explain for the others what that is. Not that one. Yeah, so but basically what this is saying is, if you're in to a specific record, let me just choose this one for example, you can't now see the grid reference to know that this is the record that you're dealing with from several others that might have the same one, the same name, especially if it's on the same day, like you were indicating. So I've got some days where I recorded high frequency. So this one, for example, where I might be looking for a specific record here. So the time of the day would be useful. So this was when it was a really hot day and we were trying to track across the course of the day, but just adding a few extra things to these records, these summaries would help, I think, and knowing where you've got a specimen as well, so we can show on this summary that there's a specimen, or that this is a certain time of day, or site names, or yeah, we can add a lot more to this, but at the moment it's trying to do that in a visually succinct way, so that you can get there, and also the fact that once it's locked, at the moment we can't see the grid reference or any of the details because it's now been locked, and that's not right. We want to be able to see the full record, but these are kind of things that come out from the feedback that we're really interested in, because they're all helping for it to be usable, and so yeah, definitely interested in that sort of feedback.
Okay, and this is probably a bit more, well, may not be such a problem, but sometimes I identify some specimens in the field of the same species and gender, and then identify a specimen later on. So it's a kind of a mixed method of determining the species. I don't know, perhaps there won't be enough call for that to.
I think the problem. Yeah, I mean, we probably could do it in the platform. I guess the question is whether Roger and co would be interested in that down the line. Yeah. I guess you've always got the option to include it in the comments, I suppose. So yeah, if you did sort of capture something in the field of provisional identification, you wanted to record that and versus later on, then that would be you could deal with that in the comments. So yeah, that's useful.
Yeah, so for like those circumstances when, say, you find something like Platycarus splendidus, and some of those you can perhaps get away with identifying in the field, but you can back them up with a few specimens. So it might be useful. Don't know how useful. It might be useful to have that there, saying that although you did identify some in the field, you've backed up that with some specimens as well.
Yeah.
And of course, the individuals vary as well in how good you can perceive their characters in the field, and sometimes you take specimens you just don't know in the field. But
sure.
That's probably not a priority. That's just another thought I had. But
no. But what we are interested in certainly is that issue of where you've got a larvae and you might not know what it is until it's reared, and the spreadsheet that you've sent me already, we're pretty sure we can implement that. It's just getting around to it, and as I say, this is a voluntary project, so I think it will take a bit of time to get through this roadmap, but it is on the list. And so for the others' benefit, I'll just jump on to some of those things that we're looking at. So a map, obviously, we're mapping specialists, so we're quite keen to get map functionality, something where you can pull up a map for an individual species, where you can show, have some filters for, maybe it's to the same tribe or the same genus, and maybe filtering by sites and dates and all sorts of other things. But the platform, the hard bit has been done now, getting the data in. Yanis tells me that the visualization is the easy bit from his perspective, and to a lot of, to all intents and purposes, that's true. It's getting the data in and having the data available. We can visualize it in all sorts of different and exciting ways, and I think that's the good thing about where we've got to now, is we've got enough records to start visualizing and for you to start interacting with the records. So a map is obviously a useful one. I guess there's also potential to compare your records with the whole scheme. There's some issues around privacy of locations, but at this sort of scale, you wouldn't see sort of anything that would be a concern, and we can obviously restrict it so that you can't zoom in to too detailed, so that people's locations could be identified. So yeah, there's definitely something we want to do on the maps. The early species recording, again, this is what I've just been talking about. So this is when you find it as a larvae, and then you raise it, and it may be more than one larvae. So there's 4 in this case. So you're rearing those, and then eventually, hopefully, there'll be an outcome. So the outcome may be that it died, or that it's pupated and it's not identifiable. But elsewhere down the line, when they are identifiable, then we'll be able to track that through, and you'll have the history, Jeff, for success rates and all sorts of other things. So at the moment, we're clear on what needs to be done. We just haven't done it. And
that's cool. That's I think I emailed you a while back on another aspect, which is perhaps deviating slightly from pure biological recording. But this takes care of the bit where you're finding eggs or larvae in the field, and then bringing them into captivity to rear, to get a determination, find out what they are. But the other thing that we do a lot in our group is that we and this is more for trying to generate specimens for larval descriptions. So we'll bring adults from the field into captivity to then lay eggs, and then to get the larvae that way. Might be quite good to have a system that's tailored for that side of things. So it's not purely a biological record, but way of
again, we could have a variant of it that tracked that sort of thing, where it's like a more scientific sort of lab recording system or something. That would be a slight tweak to this, I guess. It would, but essentially it's the same data, isn't it? As you've brought in 2 adults, they're in a place where hopefully they'll lay some eggs, and then you'll find those and track those through the process, and hopefully get some useful data out of them. And again, that might support a paper or something, you know, because but we'd have to try and look at that in a bit more detail of the sorts of things, you know, we need to, as with any new functionality, we need to step through the use case with you in a lot more detail. So, you know, when we come to that point, we'll arrange a different session for all the folk who are interested in larvae, and we'll make sure that we understand it properly before we start building. But you get the idea of what we're trying to do, and obviously we want to try and support that, because I don't think anyone else has got anything like that at the moment.
No.
So
it's
it'll be
really
quite
good.
novel.
Really good. Because at the moment I'm having to keep my if I start going into SyrphBoard, I have to keep these things separate.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It's,
and then larval stuff separately in a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it can sometimes be quite hard to keep track of these things in a spreadsheet. But a system like this looks great. I look forward to playing with it and using it.
My problem is keeping the larvae alive at the moment, or not escaping. I found one underneath my keyboard.
Yeah.
I am starting to get sucked into that world. So yeah, you might see a few records from me in the future. So that's the larval stuff, and then in the second sprint for our usability, we want to look at the dashboard again, and or maybe we'll cover some elements. But again, we've got quite good ideas of what we want to do here. So, you know, at the moment it's quite dry, that current summary. It's just a list of numbers, but you know, there's no reason why that couldn't be an interactive pie chart of all the top 20 and their proportions as a proportion of the total. And, you know, individual species numbers. A lot of people have asked us about first and last records of a species so that they can compare to this year, and that makes sense. But yeah, all sorts of summary statistics, being able to generate things like phenologies visually. I think you saw some really, again, if you want to see an example, Robin Soames has done some really good work on taking his records and showing the phenology. We could reproduce something like that in the platform. And then for me, one useful thing would be when I'm recording a specific site, often the site managers want the details, the records. So just a way of summarizing and aggregating up by individual sites is another option. So there's quite a lot there. There's obviously a lot more, and the more input we have from the group, the better. And obviously, the more users we have, the better, because it's creating a richer data set for people to analyze with. And yeah, so that's where we're at the moment. I'm just looking at Trevor's records. Sorry, his chat question, which I'll just bring up. So once records are submitted, does the platform know not to allow that record to be submitted again when you select submit all? Yes, absolutely. This is obviously a big concern, that we don't want to be making sure that we're duplicating. And so we're currently, once you've hit submit, as soon as it's verified, that's it, and it will only export verified records. So there won't be a danger of submitting twice. We have a query with Roger about where that responsibility lies, in terms of, you know, we can't really tell the hoverfly recording scheme what they've got, if you see what I mean. So we would prefer just to export a cut of the data for a period of time, or for a given date, and then they could compare against it. But there shouldn't be any instance where we would get duplicated records. So does that answer your question, Trevor? Yeah, great. So yeah, that's it really from my side. I mean, obviously, there's quite a lot of people in the background who are helping out with the steer of this, and it's been quite a fun thing to do, in terms of you know, just the range of options that we've got, potentially enhancing this and making it something that supports the work of the recording scheme. So yeah, we're kind of enjoying the fact that we've got some data now, and that there's a lot of scope potentially for you know, more visualizations, analysis, and reports and things to come. So yeah, if there are any specific questions, or any further questions, we can cover those now. Is that okay? Excellent.
I don't have any specific questions, Andy. I just want to say thanks for all of your work. It's a really awesome system. I'm nowhere near the number of records you've managed to enter in, but I'm looking forward to working and entering more.
No, that's great. Thank you. And it's not a race either. You know, I think it's kind of like we're not competing with each other as others do to generate lists and things. That's not what it's about. It's all records are welcome. And you know, I look at Paul Stevens and think, crikey, he's got thousands more records than I have. It's just one of those things. But yeah, it doesn't matter. It's like every record helps, and it's just hopefully an easy way, if you are entering regularly, though, that it should make life easier for you in the long run. And once we start to get these mapping and other dashboard elements in, it will really start to see some benefits, I think, for the users. But as I say, at the moment it's quite dry because we've had to prioritize getting the process to get the records out again. Now that we've done that, or are on the cusp of doing that, I think it's really exciting because we've got lots of ideas and we'll be releasing lots of new functionality. So yeah, hope it's encouraged anyone who's not using it to use it, and yeah, and for those who are, that they continue to do so and give us feedback. So we'd welcome any feedback you have, either to the support email. I'll post this video and the presentation on the site, but yeah, you can contact me through the Facebook group or through the MapFlim support email, which is on the system. So yeah, that's it from me.
Great, thanks very much.
No, you're welcome, and yeah, just let us know how you get on.
Thank you.
All right,
That's
thanks
awesome.
for your time, everyone. All the best.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks then. Bye bye.